Elias had always found comfort in silence. He loved the way pages whispered when he turned them. He loved how every story felt like a doorway. And he loved how the world outside seemed to disappear the moment he opened a book. One rainy afternoon, he stepped inside the old town library. The door creaked behind him. A cold draft slipped across his neck. Dust floated in the stale air like tiny drifting ghosts. The smell of aged paper wrapped around him. He walked deeper inside. The lights flickered overhead. Shelves stretched into darkness farther than he remembered. It felt as if the library had grown while no one was watching. Elias ran his fingers along the spines of the books. Some covers were cracked. Some looked untouched for decades. His hand stopped on a thick brown volume with no title. It felt warm, almost like a living thing. He pulled it from the shelf. The moment he opened it, a sharp tingling crawled up his arms. The letters on the page shifted. They twisted as if trying to escape the paper. Elias blinked hard, but they kept moving. A faint humming rose from the spine of the book. The lights overhead dimmed again. The air turned heavy. His heartbeat grew louder in his ears. He tried to close the book, but his fingers refused to move. It felt as if the pages were holding him instead. The humming deepened into a low rumble. Something cold brushed against his shoulder. He spun around, but no one was there. The shelves behind him had changed. They appeared taller, narrower, twisting like a maze he did not remember entering. Elias called out for the librarian. His voice echoed too long, as if the room had expanded. The echo sounded wrong. It sounded like someone else's voice returning to him. He stepped backward, clutching the book to his chest. His foot hit something soft. He looked down. A single sheet of paper lay on the floor. It was torn from the strange book. The letters on it pulsed like dim breathing lights. He knelt to pick it up. The moment he touched the page, a sharp sting shot through his fingers. His vision blurred for a second. The shelves leaned toward him. The floor shifted under his weight. Elias felt a growing pressure inside his chest. The paper trembled in his hand. He turned it over slowly. On the back, fresh ink dripped in long streaks. A message formed letter by letter. A message written in a handwriting that looked exactly like his own. The message said, "You are not supposed to be here, Elias." His breath caught in his throat. The ink on the page glowed a faint red. Each letter pulsed like a heartbeat. His heartbeat matched it without his control. A slow thud, then another, then faster, as if the message itself was inside him. He dropped the page. It did not fall normally. It drifted downward like ash. It settled on the floor and dissolved into thin air, as if it had never existed. Elias stumbled backward. The book pressed against his chest seemed to vibrate with a strange life. A warm current rushed through his arms. His fingers stiffened. The shadows stretched across the floor. The entire aisle narrowed until it resembled a throat closing around him. He turned and tried to run. His legs felt heavy. The carpet beneath his feet squished as if soaked in something thick. A faint smell of smoke drifted up from the fibers. He looked down and saw faint black fingerprints appearing in the carpet with every step he took. He reached the end of the aisle. But another aisle appeared in front of him. Identical. Endless. A perfect copy of the last. The shelves creaked. A low whisper rolled across the tops of the books. He could not understand the words. But the tone was unmistakable. Warning. Or accusation. He could not tell which. He pressed his back against a shelf. The wood felt warm. Too warm. It pulsed. Gently like a slow-breathing creature. He felt every pulse deep in his spine. The book in his hands began to open on its own. The pages flipped rapidly. Lines of text flashed before his eyes faster than he could read them. The sound of turning pages grew louder. Louder. Until it was like a storm of paper swirling in a room without wind. Elias clamped the book shut with all his strength. The pages froze. Silence returned so suddenly that his ears rang. He took a step forward. Something moved behind him. A soft shuffle, like feet dragging lightly across the carpet. Very slow, very deliberate. He turned around. No one stood there, but the aisle behind him had darkened. The lights above flickered. A faint figure seemed to be standing far within the shadows. A tall shape, still, watching, unmoving. His throat tightened. He squeezed the book even harder. He looked down at the cover. New letters were forming on the leather surface. He watched them shape themselves with horrifying clarity. The words spelled, "Return the story." His fingers twitched. He felt an electric sting shoot up his arms. The letters sank back into the leather as if satisfied that he had seen them. The spine tightened in his hand. He felt a pulling sensation. Not physical. Something inside his thoughts. A tug, a pull, a whisper without sound telling him to open it again. He shook his head hard. He refused to let his fingers move. He refused to open the book. The lights overhead flickered again. Then they went out entirely. The aisle drowned in darkness. Only a thin glow leaked from beneath the book cover in his hands. A soft pale light, like moonlight trapped inside the pages. Elias turned toward the faint glow. The cover trembled. The glow brightened. It cast long shadows on the shelves that twisted like living branches. He pressed the book against his chest. The shadows stretched toward him. One shadow rose up like an arm. Long, thin, boneless, reaching for him with silent intention. Elias stumbled backward into a shelf. A loud thud echoed through the darkness. A cascade of books tumbled onto the floor around him. Their covers slammed open. Pages fluttered like frantic wings. The sound filled the air with a strange restless energy. He scrambled to his feet. The glow beneath the book cover grew brighter. His arms shook from the force of holding it closed. The book seemed heavier now, as if filled with something that pushed against him from the inside. A faint voice rose behind him. It sounded distant, as if spoken from inside a tunnel. Then it grew clearer, more defined, a whisper that spoke his name. Elias, Elias, you must read it. The whisper echoed through the aisles. It came from every direction at once. It pressed against his ears. It crawled into his chest. It pressed against his heart. He shook his head again. He pressed his back against the wall. The shelves stretched endlessly on both sides. No windows, no doors, only aisles that bent into impossible directions. Another sheet of paper slid across the floor toward him. He did not see where it came from. It moved with a slow, smooth motion, as if pulled by unseen fingers. It stopped at his feet. He stared at it. His throat tightened again. His breath grew shallow. The paper flipped itself over. Fresh letters bled across its surface. The ink spread like veins across skin. The new message said, "You read stories. Now a story reads you." Elias felt the air collapse around him. A cold pressure wrapped around his shoulders. The book clicked in his hands. A sound like a lock turning. A sound like something opening on its own deep inside the pages. A soft hiss followed, as if an unseen mouth had taken its first breath. The glow beneath the cover began to seep out through the edges, tracing lines of light across his fingers, his arms, the floor beneath him, the shelves around him. The library warped. The aisles swayed. The shelves leaned inward. The lights returned for a brief moment, just long enough for Elias to see that the eyes of the carved wooden lion on the end of the nearest bookshelf were now open. The lion blinked, slowly, deliberately, its wooden gaze fixed on him. Then the lights went out again, and something stepped forward from the darkness behind the lion. Something tall, something thin, something with pages instead of skin. Something made entirely of stories that should never have been opened. It turned its head toward him, and every page on its body rippled, as if eager for him to read them. Elias felt the book in his hands pull itself open again. A violent force, as if the world inside the book wanted to reach out and drag him in. The creature stretched one long paper hand toward him, each finger made of folded pages, each finger twitching, reaching, waiting for him to take its hand. Elias tried to step back, but the floor behind him was gone. The library had vanished into a white endless space. A blank page, waiting for ink, waiting for a story, waiting for him. The creature stepped closer. Its shadow spread across the blank floor. Its voice rose again, a whisper made of rustling paper, a whisper that told him he no longer belonged to the real world. It told him he belonged to the story now. And Elias felt the book pull at him with growing force. Pulling, dragging, demanding, calling him into the glowing pages that trembled with hungry anticipation. Elias felt the pull grow stronger. The glowing pages widened like an open doorway. The creature of paper leaned closer, its many pages rustling with anticipation. For a moment Elias believed there was no escape. The world around him was a blank page, and he was a single ink mark waiting to be erased. His fingers trembled, but they still held the book. He looked down at its glowing spine. The light poured out in steady waves. It seemed alive, but it also seemed afraid. Afraid of the creature, afraid of the blank world, afraid of losing him. Elias understood something then. The book was not his enemy. It was something lost, something broken, something that needed a reader to understand it. He took a slow breath. He placed his hand on the open page. The creature stopped moving. Its shadow froze across the white floor. The air stilled. Every page on its body trembled with unease. Elias began to read. The words on the page shifted, but he kept his eyes steady. He read each line aloud. His voice echoed across the blank world. The glow brightened with every sentence. He felt warmth spread through his hands, through his arms, through his chest, until he felt anchored again. Grounded, present. The creature recoiled. Its fingers curled inward. The pages that formed its body began to tear. Long cracks spread across its shape. It took a step back. Its voice rose in a desperate whisper, but Elias did not stop reading. The ground beneath him solidified. The blank white world rippled like disturbed water. Corners formed, walls sharpened, shelves returned. The library rebuilt itself line by line, shelf by shelf, book by book. The creature let out a final crumpling cry. Its body folded in on itself like a collapsing tower of pages. It fell to the floor and faded into dust that swirled for a moment in the air before disappearing entirely. Elias closed the glowing book. The light sank into the cover and faded. The leather turned cool again. The title appeared for the first time. A soft gold engraving that read, "The Reader Who Returned." He held the book close and walked slowly back through the restored aisles. The lights were steady now. The shelves were normal. The scent of old paper was warm and familiar again. No whispers followed him. No shadows reached for him. No strange messages stained the floor. He stepped out of the library and into the calm evening air. The sky glowed orange with the last light of sunset. The rain had stopped. The world felt real again. Elias looked down at the book one last time. Its cover felt peaceful, silent, still. He placed it gently into the return box outside the door. The metal clanged softly as it slid inside. For a long moment he stood there, breathing, thinking, feeling the solid earth beneath his feet. Then he walked away from the library. Slow steps, quiet breaths, a gentle promise to himself that he would return to stories. But he would never let a story trap him again. Behind him, inside the return box, the book settled, its pages still, its cover closed.